You may have seen my previous video about my grocery haul. In that haul was 12 pounds of Italian sausage that I decided I was going to can for our pantry shelf. At $1.89 a pound, I bought all 12 pounds that they had. I believe in conveniences for myself, so I brown my ground meat in a crock pot. I do it 5 pounds at a time because that is how much will fit into my canner at one time. With these tubes of meat, I cut them in half and then I just slice the plastic on each side, drop it in. It slides right out of the tube that way. You can see the marks from the plastic in the ends of these. I use my meat chopper to break these up a couple of times during the cooking process. I do it first right away when I drop these in and start it, and then I do it at about an hour and an hour and a half. I brown this on high, so it's usually done in about 2 hours. This is after I have initially broken it up, and again, as I said, I'll do this at least 2 more times. This is my meat when it was done browning. As you can see, there's still a little pink in there, and that's fine. It will finish cooking in the canner. These are ready to drain now and go in the jars. To drain, I just prop a colander over my crock pot and spoon the meat in. I use a slotted spoon so I don't pick up quite as much of the fat from the crock pot. After this step, some people choose to wash or rinse the meat to get more of the fat off. I do not. The next step is filling your jars. I use wide mouth jars because it's easier to get the meat out of when it's time to use it. And then a wide mouth funnel makes it easier so everything goes inside. Each of these jars will hold a pound of ground meat, but you have to pack it down. So I use my meat chopper. It's a Pampered Chef, but I hear they have them at the dollar store now. And I just pack the meat down and add more. Okay, I've filled all of my jars with water, let them sit for a couple minutes, and then top them off again. Now the USDA or whoever governs the rules says you should have an inch of headspace on these. For meat, I always fill them a little bit fuller so I can get all 5 pounds into 5 jars. I've never had a problem with lids buckling or siphoning or unsafe meat, but I just want you to know that this is not necessarily what the USDA says for headspace. Now you just wipe the lids with a clean cloth, wet. Some people prefer to use vinegar. You wipe the rims on theirs. I've never used vinegar. I've never had a problem with lids sealing. But some people insist you have to use vinegar to get the grease off the rim. You do you on that. Follow that with lids and rings. Now the lid manufacturers and the USDA say do not reuse your lids. These are new lids for me, but I'm not going to tell you what to do in your house. Some people have success, some do not when they reuse their lids. And then you put this finger tight. Really what that means is as soon as the jar starts turning, it's tight. Let me show you that again on this one. Just as soon as the jar starts turning. Next up is canning. I use the Nesco or the Carry electric canner. There are people who will tell you not to use this. It's unsafe and not USDA approved. That is absolutely inaccurate, and to them I say, show me where yours is USDA approved. Because the USDA does not approve canners, electric or otherwise. They have standards of what a canner must meet, and this meets all the standards. This canner holds 5 pints, so my first step was to make sure the rack was in and fill it with the recommended water per my instruction manual, which is 8 cups. Then I'm going to put the 5 jars in, 2, 3, 4. I tricked you. I'm only putting 4 in because these wide mouth jars, look how tight that fits. You won't be able to get your jar lifter in to pick it up, and you don't want to reach in there with your hands when it's hot. So my workaround in that is this. A regular size canning ring. I just drop it in the bottom like that. Put the jar in. And now that'll be the first one I take out, and I can get the rest out very easily. I close the lid, twist it to lock it in place, so from open to close. I make sure this is set to vent, and then I start my canner. For this I use high, and I'll use 75 minutes. Oh, look at that. I didn't get it all the way over to close. There we go. Back to 75 minutes. Now I'll hit start, and the circle means it's just coming up to the heat, and then it'll vent for 10 minutes and let me know to turn this dial to airtight. And that's when the 75 minutes will count down. While my canner was running, I started the second 5 pounds of sausage, and that was ready by the time my canner had done its thing and cooled down. So now I have 10 pounds in jars ready for the pantry shelf. Well, almost ready. I've taken the rings off, and I've wiped the jars down. Some people put the rings back on after this step. I do not, but you go ahead and do you. The only thing I have left to do is stick dissolvable labels on these and put them on the pantry shelf. And this is why I use dissolvable labels. I probably got this jar at a farmer's market filled with a flavor of jam I hadn't tried yet, and they do not use dissolvable labels. So although it's probably the 6th or 7th time I've used this jar and I scrub it in between, I just can't get all that glue off. On the plus side, there's a little bit less each time I do it. If you like my videos, please take a moment to hit the like button. And I'd also appreciate it if you would subscribe.